What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Pixelists Podcast, the podcast about all the nerdy things we love and enjoy. As always, we're your hosts. I'm Will. That's Blake. And today we're here to talk a little Worlds Beyond Number, Wizard Witch in the Wild One, episode 20.
Episode 20.
I'm just going to jump in right there. Like, I can't believe we're here. Like, it's almost been a year, right? Between the every other week schedule and the break between the first two arcs.
I thought I guess you're right. I thought it was like fall or something.
Yeah, it's not a year yet. It's not a year yet, but I feel like we got to be getting close because episode 20 means at least 40 weeks. And then there was like a month or two break between arcs 1 and 2, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't that long.
No, you're right. The math checks out. There's one thing we know, it's math.
Yeah. That's what we're known for.
Yeah.
But yeah, it doesn't feel like, and again, it's not a year, so maybe we should, sidebar this conversation to when it actually is. But I can't believe it's even been almost a year. It feels weird.
And it's been very good. I'm very glad I have committed myself to it. I very much enjoyed the campaign, but also just like the style of Worlds Beyond.
Yeah.
So it's very good content.
Same. Absolutely loving it.
Which, I guess if you guys, I'll just say, if you guys who are watching, if you found us through like Critical Role or like other forms of content, and like you've been like, what is this thing I keep hearing about? Like, let this be like, it is like the perfect drive time audiobook is what I'll even call it.
Yeah.
Because like you're listening to a story and it's a continuous story, but it's just very well made. And the cast they're just amazing.
Agreed. It's definitely, I would say it's more similar to an audiobook than it is to Critical Role.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually going to say the same thing, but we should say this again, not in this video, because anybody that's watching this already watches World Beyond. I would at least imagine.
Maybe, we got on the YouTube, we got like 14,000 subscribers. And the videos always get sent out to people. They're like, hey, new video from these guys, and you have like people who probably they're like, oh yeah, and then people are like, who are these people again? And I'm kind of speaking to that second group that they stumbled across the video and they're like, I only do Critical Role, and you're like, hang on, for you X out that box.
Well,
check
yeah, no, agreed. We need to bring everybody into the family here for this one. The fold. There we go. That's the F word I was looking for. But yeah, we should just do this again, though, is all I'm saying. In our next Critical Role episode, we need to get those fools in here.
Yeah, sure. Well, for those of you tuning in, we had our Sunday Fun Day on Sunday. Naturally, we watched Liam O'Brien's Song of Lorelei, and that's just a good little plug for our Discord. If you love discussions around D&D, Critical Role, Worlds Beyond, just general nerd stuff, I'd say jump into our Discord. It's a pretty positive, solid group. I feel nervous all of a sudden. I'm like, promise you, we're pretty cool.
Please be our friend.
But part of that, though, is we do typically we'll watch something on a Sunday night just for anybody who wants to just hang out and chill. But we just finished that, and we have our Friday live stream at 1:00 on. Now you got me thinking about the time. 1:00 on Fridays, and that's just a hangout where we chat about, again, the same topics as before. And we're pretty active on all the social medias, so make sure you're checking us out and following us wherever you prefer.
Yeah, please do. And also, I always forget to say this, but you just reminded me, if you are listening to us via podcast, we would greatly appreciate a quick review or whatever the system is on the platform you're on. Always goes a long way. So
yeah, you can review us on Apple Podcasts and you can follow us on Spotify. So appreciate you all.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I hit a button. Well, my friend, are we ready to dive in today?
I think so. And I guess one last quick thing that doesn't necessarily need to be said here. But I don't know what exactly our time looks like today, but for anybody that tuned in last week, you saw that obviously Blake wasn't here. So we didn't get to have our typical discussion. So we might get to squeeze in a little bit talking about that today as well.
I can dig it.
But yeah. Otherwise, take it away, my friend.
Yeah, well, if you're tuning into us for the first time, we like to do a little recap before we dive into the episode discussion, only because sometimes the episodes can be a couple hours long, and in terms of like Critical Role, it can be 4 or 5 hours long. So we like to do a little bit of a recap for you. And what we actually do is we cut that out as a separate video and throw it up on YouTube. So if you're watching just the recap, there actually is a link to our full episode discussion down below, so you can check that out as well. But having said that, this was Worlds Beyond Number, The Wizard, the Witch, and the Wild One, episode 20. I think it's Later Than You Think is the name of the episode. Maybe just Later Than You Think.
I think that's right.
And essentially, let me pull my little notes here. The episode opens with the party at a cafe. They're at a cafe meeting with Pomeroy, the spirit warden, for lack of a better phrase, the spidery, spindly figure in his human glamour form at a cafe, and who has agreed to essentially answer whatever questions they have about himself, the nature of the gallery, and his relationship with Grandmother Rin. Now, part of the reason they're here is because Ame knows his real name, and essentially because of there being like power in a name, it has created sort of like this blackmail effect of like, hey, tell us anything or we'll let people know what your real name is. So there's a number of conversations that happen here. First of all, Pomeroy reveals that he and Grandmother Rin had a pretty strained relationship, in that she basically blackmailed him to provide an in into the Citadel, not just like in terms of information, but more specifically that Grandmother Rin was occasionally allowed to come by the gallery and take certain paintings, basically. Yeah. And he offers, they ask for a list of those things, and Pomeroy says that it can be provided. Pomeroy also mentions that these paintings, whenever they are taken, that Grandmother Rin would always time it with like big name thieves and crimes around town to coincide with it, so that people would be none the wiser. The other conversation that happens is this conversation around Ursulon's sister, the Badger, also known as Kalaya, who had been in the gallery some odd 20 years previously. Pomeroy reveals that Kalaya, something like 50 years before that, was actually pretending to be a wizard at the Citadel until some 30 years later she was found out to be a spirit and was effectively imprisoned in the gallery before being released in an incident that saw many other spirits also being released. The party puts 2 and 2 together and realizes that this is actually what Ursulon found in the notes, in Suvi's notes, about her father, Soft, and that presumably Soft was one of the conjurers watching over the gallery, and for some reason released a number of spirits, Kalaya being one of them, and that Kalaya has not been heard from or seen since. Also, since this point, Pomeroy now watches over the gallery himself, and basically says that he is endlessly devoted to the Citadel and will always be in service of it. Also mentioned, the party actually say goodbye to Pomeroy. Pomeroy leaves, really not enjoying the sunlight. But also mentioned is, if we're going to find out more information on what Kalaya was doing, and more specifically maybe what she was even studying while she was here, it might raise some eyebrows for people who wouldn't want them to know certain things, or at least might be suspicious. They table that. They decide to go to the court of Kabani, which is the court of divination, to find out more about the wizard Sly, who Grandmother Rin had told Ame was a true friend. And effectively, they take a portal door or a teleportation spell through one of the services in the city to arrive at this court, where they do in fact meet the wizard Sly, who is living in kind of like this ramshackle, kind of small, very Back to the Future dock. Just stuff everywhere, stuff in its boxes still. And the wizard Sly, we find out, being in the court of divination, pretty much knows the future, can tell the future. There's a joke about where he's like, "Hey, let's go get a doner kebab," and Suvi's like, "Well, should I lock the door?" And he's like, "No, no one's going to try to break in until a year and a half from now." And there's a lot of like really really cool comments like that. There's one moment where Suvi's like, "Well, then I'm going to prove him wrong, and I'm going to steal a ruby," because there's like random rubies and like just stuff everywhere. And then later in the conversation, she feels bad and she gives it back to him, and he basically says like, "I guess you never stole it, huh?" Just therein, Brennan was just brilliant in that little stinger of a line.
Yeah.
But anyway, getting to the point, they have this full-on conversation about the nature of the wizard sly and like what exactly he does here. And he specializes, I can't remember the name of the office, but it's basically like averting catastrophes.
Yeah.
And we find out that his catastrophes he's working to avoid are not always in the best interest of the Citadel.
Right.
Though it's implied that sometimes he does present certain things as in the Citadel's best interest. For example, Suvi sees a report where it's basically the Mage Sly doing like a budget request to avoid this event that's going to end the Saraz family line like 200 years from now. And all the gold and rubies that are required, it's like 80, I think it was like 800 pounds of gold, but it all adds up to 85,000 Imperial marks. So despite that, he's effectively trying to do good on the Citadel's bankroll. And he does reveal some insights to the party. To Ursulon, he says that you're on the right track, which really encourages Ursulon. But he also tells Ursulon, you're going to need a shield. Otherwise, Suvi and Ame will be dead within the next year. Which they're kind of like, wait, what? There's also that, but that's even like a tiny detail compared to what he tells Ame, which Ame's like, hey, like there's supposed to be like this conclave meeting, like what's up with that? And he's like, oh yeah, it's going to be happening in 3 days. It's going to be happening whether you're there or not. And basically says like it's at the North Pole, and essentially is like the domain of the witch, I think of Wind and Sky, I think is what it was. But basically says that, hey, if you go to that meeting, you need to know they're going to try to destroy you. Not only going to try to destroy you, they're going to try to destroy your position, the Witch of the World Heart. And the only way you can avoid it is by convincing them that another station must also be destroyed, to which they're going to realize they can't give up another station. Also mentions this key detail that if in every version you go to this meeting, if Suvi's not with you, you will die. To which she's like, hey, Suvi, you want to come with me? And Suvi's like, yeah, I guess I should.
Guess, yeah.
There's a couple other cool things. He gives Suvi like a bag of rubies, and it's kind of like, you'll know what to do with these like when it gets to that point. And then also I think gives, in order to get to this meeting, gives like an item out of a crate that he describes like looks like a dinner plate.
Yeah.
And is like basically like, hey, if you use this at like the divination sands, it'll get you where you need to go, though it won't get you back. And then one last detail, he tells Suvi that Fort Kieran's going to be back under the Empire's control within the next 24 hours, and that steel will be arriving back shortly. That's pretty much all the big notes from that conversation. And then as it's ending, the wizard Sly kind of poofs and teleports away and is like, good luck, guys, don't die. All that to say, they still have another meeting to have in this long day, and they decide to go over to Haverford to see Suvi's old friend Hannah and her father, the artificer Galt. Do you want to take it from there?
Yes, sir. Is it Haverford or Haverwort?
Don't know now that you say it,
because I wrote down Wort, but you said Ford, and I was like, oh wait, I don't know which one it is.
I think Haverford.
Okay,
but now I don't know. Haverwort. They both sound like they're right.
Yeah, so y'all forgive us if we're.
I will point out, I guess it was last episode we didn't talk about, but Brennan joked about how there's like 50 million names now and like so much lore, and he's like, you didn't even realize what we're getting into. So who knows which one it is?
Yeah, y'all let us know in the comments. So the crew, I'm just going to say Wort for now because that's what I have written down. The crew travels to Haverwort to go see Galt. They enter a shop that says Tullover on it, and it's like this industrial factory, but it's not that big. It says there's only like 20 to 30 workers inside of it. And inside, Hana is working at one of the desks, and Brennan describes her as this like bone white hair, but like part of her face and neck are like deteriorated, presumably from the accident that we learned about a couple episodes ago. But anyway, as the crew enters, Golt recognizes Suvi and is like, "Oh, hello!" And as they're quickly like making introductions, there is this sudden influx of jewel hoppers, which are these like gem like crickets that
Yeah.
enjoy eating like gemstones and precious metals. And in this industrial factory, that's like a feast for them. So they're quickly like, oh, we got to handle this. So Golt and Suvi both start trying to take these things out, and Ame manages to catch one to keep for herself. So after that kind of settles down a little bit, Ame and Golt kind of excuse themselves to go talk privately, and Golt says that Rin or Ame says that Rin referred to you as a true friend, and Ame actually tells him of her passing because he had not heard.
Mhm.
And while they're having their conversation, Suvi goes and sneaks up on Hana and kind of surprises her and hugs her and catches up with her really quick. And she reveals that they're working on creating staff caps, but also shields here. And Suvi's like, perfect. We're trying to get a shield for my friend here, Bear, which is Ursulon, obviously. And they're
Mhm.
like, could we maybe get one of these shields that you're making? And Hana's like, well, we aren't making these to like sell them. This has been commissioned by the Citadel, and we later find out that these are being turned into those sentient soldiers that we saw in a couple
Yeah.
episodes
It's
previous
a
as well.
Murray.
Yeah, thank you, Tamori. um, but she's like, but let me go ask my dad. Like maybe we've got an extra one to spare. So we cut back to Ame and Golt now, and Ame's like, apologies, I don't have too much time to catch up with you and learn about your history with grandmother Rin, but I would love to. But I'm in a position where I'm short on time, and I just, I need help. And so Golt reveals that a little bit of his history with Rin, saying that he first met her back when he was traveling to build the traveling door to Silbury. And this would have been about 25 years ago. And that's when he met Rin, because some of the things in building that door were going awry. They had a lot of issues, and Rin was actually the one to help them solve these issues. And this is the same time that Golt met Stone, Suvi's mother, and presumably the same time that Stone met Rin as well, because she was an abjurer at the time and she was there to help with this door as well. And he says that Rin back then talked a lot about the taboo of passage, saying that has to do with the magical definition of roads and what roads were. And that's why this like door was having issues. And it's at this point that Hana walks into the room and asks about the shield for Ursulon, and they start talking in another language, their native language, presumably Tuscavi, which is a vassal state of the Empire. We find out, and there's like a quick exchange, and Hana is described as like looking bleak and kind of like not happy during this conversation. And Golt eventually says, "Just get the shield, Hana." Um, so then she leaves, and Golt continues saying that Rin was very kind to him. Um, Artificers don't make the most money, and a lot of the times they have to find ways to provide for themselves to help make ends meet. And Rin helped him a lot with that. And he mentioned specifically that at one point Rin had asked him for, I believe, a flawless sapphire. And Ame can't remember ever seeing this or knows what he's talking about. Um, but at the end, he's basically like, yeah, like that's like the main information. Like, apologies, I couldn't be of more help. So then we cut back to Suvi, Ursulon, and Hana, and she's like, hey, we don't really have any spare shields, but what we do have are some prototypes. So you're welcome to take a look at those. And so what Brennan does for this is pretty cool. He has each of the players roll an investigation check to look for these prototype shields. And then he tells them to describe to him what they found based on their rolls. So in order of worst roll to best roll, we first have Suvi, who just describes like this small buckler that she found that like doesn't have an enchantment but is ready to get one. Ursulon describes finding a massive tower shield, like way bigger than a normal human could carry, but perfect for somebody like him. And then finally, Ame, with the highest roll, says she finds a shield like tucked away in the corner behind all the other ones with like this gold sheen to it, and then it like feels lighter than it looks. And all three of these, by the way, can hold an enchantment. um, so they grab those three and they, ask Hannah about it, and they're like, "How much do we owe you?" And she's like, "No, my father would be honored to give you one." And Ame does an insight check on this moment and realizes that there's like this weird dynamic between Suvi and Hana because of their past and stuff, and that what Aabria reveals about Suvi is that like she's kind of unintentionally and is completely unaware of the fact of the new shift in their dynamic, with Suvi being in such a high station in life and Hana not, that it's kind of coming off as like she's speaking down to her.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so Ame picks up on that awkwardness and is in like a trying to be kind, says like, "Oh no, we can't accept this for free. Like in return, you will have a boon, a favor from the Witch of
Mm-hmm.
the World's Heart." And she gets like really excited about that and goes and tells her father. And Gold is like, "Whoa, a shield for a boon? Sure, like take all three of them if you want." But they only actually take two. Ursulon chooses the one he described and the one Ame described. Um, so as the party take their leave, they do invite Hana to come join them for dinner at Chura's Chowder. And she says she's busy, but she gets off work in time. She'll join them. Um, so they leave, and there's this kind of powerful moment as they leave where Suvi makes an insight check and kind of has that realization of the dynamic and kind of just the privilege she's had in her life for being such a status individual, compared to somebody like Hana who's going to spend the rest of her life in that steamy factory. um Suvi doesn't let anyone else know that she kind of is having this realization, but she has it. So they go to the chowder shop. Hana does not show up. They eat, and then they head on the platforms out of Haverwort to go back home. But as they're riding it up, they do see out in the desert all of these lights start popping up, and it's skyships, up to I think 4 dozen. Brennan mentions, and he says you've never seen this amount of military presence in your life before, and leading them all is Steel's flagship, and that's where the episode ends. Again, that is episode 20 of Worlds Beyond Number, and if you are just catching the recap, you can check the description for our full discussion. Hope to see you there. But yeah.
That was me leaving to go to the full discussion.
See ya.
I have this space heater that kicked on, and it's like really loud.
Making you sweat.
Yeah, literally. No, it's just really loud whenever like I watch our stuff after the fact. It's like,
Oh, really? I feel like
So-
I've never noticed.
yeah, I noticed.
Dr. Oblivious.
Elliot Reed, moment killer.
You're not broker of the year with Proudy.
Yeah, dude. Can we actually go back and maybe touch on the gallery?
Yeah.
Since we didn't get to talk about it. So we talked just very briefly on WhatsApp, but hats off to Brennan for an extremely atmospheric, creepy, and the development of Pomeroy was like just ugh. I hate spiders, man.
Me too.
And the gargoyle, what was his name? Opalfend.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. And I told you on WhatsApp I really wanted Ursulon to just take the painting down.
Yeah.
But Subi was like, no.
Yeah, well, actually, so now I actually have a new question because of episode 20, looking back to episode 19 now.
Okay.
Because Pomeroy, like you said, it was described as very spider-like. And there was even the moment, which I don't want to get ahead and talk about 20 yet, because I want to talk about 19. But there was even the moment that Sly mentioned, which I'm pretty sure was referring to Pomeroy. I'm interested to see if you agree, where he was talking about like, the Citadel is so vast that like, think about what a creature with hundreds and hundreds of arms could like get away with. To me, he was referring to Pomeroy. I don't know if
I didn't take it that way, but I think it's maybe even a double meaning. I think Brennan's incredibly brilliant. I could see that.
We'll hold that for now, because I want to talk about 19. But there's lots of spider imagery with Pomeroy, like you said. And in episode 19, the voice in Ursulon's head was like there was spider imagery with that as well. And clearly he went and talked to that painting. So like I'm wondering if Pomeroy was like at all pulling the strings there, because like when Ursulon very first, maybe I'm confusing two moments actually, because Brennan used the words when Ursulon first like opened himself up in the gallery that like you feel like you're touching a spider's web. So I
Mhm.
originally thought that was about the painting that he goes and talks to, but now I'm wondering if that was talking about Pomeroy.
I think, I mean, I don't think Pomeroy was orchestrating that conversation, but I do think Brennan was basically setting the stage for like, hey, you're on the edge of something incredibly dangerous. Like there was like the mention of the spider's web. There was also, he said something like almost verbatim. It was, you find yourself standing on the edge of a cliff, and
Yeah.
one step and you would fall forever. Which I think is not just referring to that moment, but also Opalfin's later, as they're departing, basically says like, "Hey, just know that for every bonbon and every drink and every like delicacy you've
Yeah.
indulged in, you have been literally one step away from being imprisoned here."
Yeah.
Which definitely, I mean, puts a little bit of a darker spin on the Citadel for sure.
Yeah. 100%. Like they I honestly expected more of a conversation about that in this episode, but things kind of moved fast and there was like something happening at each point. I wonder if
Well,
like next.
there was a little conversation. I mean,
Yeah.
Ursulon basically said like, this place isn't for me anymore, which only two, maybe three episodes ago, it was him saying like, I could have a life here, like I could
Mm,
stay here. And it was a nice tie-in. I love that he mentioned Moro, and how like it
yeah.
was like, well, is that a one-off thing or what? Because Steele seemed to imply like, this is not what we stand for. You'll be safe at the
Yeah.
Citadel, yada yada. But then Suvi was kind of like, yeah, this is kind of what we do. Sorry about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, that is
But
interesting actually about Steele in particular, because there's no way she doesn't know about this,
right,
right?
not only doesn't know about it, is the way she isn't um what's the word? Not allied in it. An
Culpable?
accomplice.
Mm,
Yeah, culpable. Sure. Like,
yeah.
I mean, this. I'm just thinking of even Kalaya, like this wizard who lived at and I mixed up the years. I couldn't remember how long it had been, but 30 or 40, maybe even 50 years at the Citadel, and then gets thrown into prison, basically, put into
Yeah.
the gallery. Like, it's kind
Yeah.
of wild.
All right. It's going to be one of those things where you accuse me of being evil like the Walking Dead guy. What was his name?
You remember
The
The Last of Us?
cannibal.
The Last of Us?
Oh yeah, yeah. I said Walking
Yeah.
Dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was his
Where you were
name?
like, I don't know, but you were like, I can see it.
Let's not go there. All I want to say is that I understand why they imprisoned her at that point. Not saying it's cool, but like she was impersonating a wizard for 50 years, so they're not going to be cool
Oh,
with that.
come on.
I'm
Whatever.
not.
Give me a break. She
I'm
wasn't like wheeling and dealing. Like, this is someone who obviously
what?
didn't feel like they could be honest with their real identity. And when they were found out, see, I went very like Jews in Nazi Germany
Listen, I'm not
direction
saying
of
it's
like
okay.
undercover.
I'm not saying it's okay. It makes sense. Like, it's just that the gallery is their prison for spirits. If she wasn't a spirit, let's just say it was a spy that was pretending to be a wizard for 50 years. It's not like they're going to say, get out of here. No, they're going to like imprison that person. That's all I'm saying.
I don't know.
Okay.
You
We'll
guys
just
have
be
to
on the record that I'm not
get in
saying
the
it's
comments
cool.
and tell us. I heard you say you would do the same thing if you were in those shoes.
Just
So
saying, somebody's pretending to be somebody they're not. It doesn't usually go over well.
is that not what Ursulon's doing?
It is. And he's having to hide for a reason, right? Like Steele knows, but I think most people would not be cool with it.
Let's see the circular logic here. He has to hide for a reason. And that then is why he would be guilty of this same crime. Like,
again, I'm not saying that it's okay, but what I'm saying is it makes complete sense to me. Like if they found out Ursulon was a spirit, the powers that be, I think, would have an issue with it.
Okay. We've been friends for 30 years. You better hope. You better hope that I don't find out something about you.
I'm secretly a werewolf. I don't know.
I don't know.
But okay, so I'm kind of torn on because there's like a logical section of things to talk about here with Pomeroy, but I also do want to talk about some stuff from 19.
Well, I just wanted to. There is more to talk about that links us to 20, but like just some like singular details.
Yeah.
We know Opalfind is a demon. We don't know.
But that's just
Seemingly
means spirit though, right?
true, but
Okay.
it's like a additional like echelon. Is that the right word or classification? I
Yeah.
guess. I'm just very. All there is conjecture. I don't know where to
Right.
go with it, other than just like, was this like a demigod or something? Like, surely wouldn't be in a gallery, right? But I got vibes of something like truly insidious in this character, and I hope we see it again.
Yeah, and I mean, who knows how it works with like what like the subject matter of the painting? Like is this all just kind of like cool thematic detail, or is there like is that literally like a snapshot of something from Opalfin's life? But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the picture was like a burning kingdom and like him sitting on the throne, like
Mm-hmm.
as if he'd ransacked the kingdom and killed the king, essentially.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
so good.
yeah, so super sinister, super cool. And he was on that next floor down, which was like described as being like
Mm-hmm.
not like more disheveled. So like maybe it's kind of like storage or something. Like, is he down there because he can't be trusted to be up in the front or something? Like, very curious about all of like the world building behind this place. Um, and what are they doing with these things? Like it seems like because sometimes the subjects disappear, right? And we saw at least the lion with three eyes. I think it was like he like said something to Ame and then disappeared. So it seems like the spirit itself has some level of control, and it's not just like they disappear when the wizards come and do something with them
Mm-hmm.
necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, really, really cool world building element, but really messed up. Like the fact that they're on display, is like almost like a trophy case, which kind of speaks to like the mentality of like
Mm-hmm.
the dynamic. So yeah, and also just because it makes sense to talk about it now, even though this is an episode 20 thing, thought it was really fascinating to learn that like Pomeroy is not subjugated. If we're taking him at his word, that he like chose to be there and is not forced to be there. Which
Well,
go ahead.
just put it in. Just Brennan is so freaking good, man. That dialogue where he was asked if he was subjugated, and he said something like, I lived in the darkness for like however many years, and now like possessing all of them brings more pride and fulfillment than whatever nourishment he got in hunting them
Yeah,
previously. Just a really, it
very
just is so good.
yeah, very very sinister. Which also tying it back to that thing Sly said a minute ago makes me just nervous about like what Pomeroy is actually doing. Like I do trust him that like he is doing it for that sense of pride, but if we can infer that that statement was about him, like I feel like there's other motives than just being the jailkeeper. Like he's up to something.
Well, and
Um
likely maybe even other spirits that are just as committed to the empire, and maybe even more sinister. Who knows?
yeah. Yeah. Um 'Cause I mean like we know that Rin got the one up on this guy somehow. Knows his true
Mm-hmm.
name and was able to use that to kind of get in there and help some of these spirits by stealing them seemingly,
Mm-hmm.
um and framing other uh, people for the disappearances. So I wonder if Pomeroy like similarly could, oh, some of these other paintings went missing and he had just like ate those or something. Like, because
What a
clearly
really good
paintings go
insight.
missing from time to time. So, like,
Yeah.
maybe more than just the ones we know Rin did have also happened or something.
Oh, that's brilliant. Oh, that's such a good
I don't
insight.
know. He's
Yeah, I
creepy
mean,
though.
yeah, I mean, if I mean, I could totally see that being the
Mm.
case.
Ugh.
Burn it all down, man.
Yeah, something needs to be done about him. I want to know his real form too. Like
Yeah,
we know he's spidery, and Brennan also described him as being like huge. I think.
yeah, vast,
Yeah.
humongous. Yeah, which is interesting that the glamour form can. It's not just a visual
Yeah.
effect. It's not minor illusion. It's like a full on. It's very wow. Like the dragon aspects
Mm.
vibe of like
Yeah.
they can take a human form. Um, so it's pretty interesting that like this, and it's not even, I shouldn't even say it's a WoW thing. It's actually a stereotypical D&D thing.
Mm.
Is a number of D&D creatures, or even more specifically, I think of Baldur's Gate 2. There is a person you meet. Spoilers for this 20-year-old game. This person you meet who ends up being a massive red dragon later on. So there's precedent for it, but
Yeah.
still kind of cool how the glamour effect works, I guess.
Yeah. That was something I was wondering because we know Ursulon is like a few feet taller than his glamour. So I always wondered, is it one of those things where if like somebody swiped their arm like above his glamour's head, would they hit
Yeah.
something? Or,
Hmm.
but I guess we know that they wouldn't.
Right. Right.
There is
What's
something. Or go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No, I was
I'm
just going to transition us fully to 20, but you go
okay.
ahead.
I'm transitioning us fully, but it's something completely else from 19 that I wanted to talk to you a little bit about.
Yeah,
And I'm
just like a tiny detail to wrap up that conversation. I love how Brennan just dropped the real name, and you're like, "Sorry, what? What's the real name?" you know. But interestingly, I love this theme of like the power of the name and like subjugation and in terms of like the true name, right? And so and even how the wizards like they when they put on their name cloak they
yeah.
lose their real name, so to speak. So it's just a cool story detail that continues to be kind of fun.
Yeah, totally. I like the like recurring theme of it. Um oh, and also one I guess last thing on that before we move away is very interesting that Soft was one of the wizards that previously worked there that presumably orchestrated that jailbreak, if you were,
Right.
or if you will. But it also seems like in the eyes of the Citadel, he probably got it. Like it didn't seem as if he allowed it, right? Because otherwise,
Hmm.
like he would have been in way more trouble. I feel like, and he did get in trouble. We know that, but
Right.
it didn't seem like he let all the spirits away. It was more like they got away under your watch. Is the vibe I got.
Yeah.
Um,
Which I mean, I wonder, the story that I'm telling myself is that it wasn't just like, what we're doing here is wrong. Jailbreak, and Kalaya happens to be one of them. I envision like a future story note of Soft and Kalaya befriending one another, not unlike Suvi and Ursulon, which I
that
think is
would be
very
cool.
poetic, and then freeing Kalaya and having to free many more in order to assist Kalaya in her escape.
Okay. I could totally see something like that. But I also would assume that he maybe wanted to release more because
Sure.
we know
Yeah.
that he was studying the spirits, right? Like we learned about
Hmm.
the near spirit or whatever, I think,
Yeah. Right.
something like that.
Mhm.
So it seems like he kind of has a soft spot for
Right.
that
Right.
type of thing.
Right.
Um okay,
But
but anyway,
yeah, you can go on to episode 20 now. That was like the other detail I wanted to mention.
still on 19, but we're shifting to a completely other subject. And it was this really interesting thing about what Suvi figured out about her mom. And we learned more about this like accusation of treason. And I'm trying to find the exact part in my notes because it was a lot of Brennan words. Um, but it was essentially like there are these three
Oh,
metaphysical
right.
axioms that are like put
Right.
forward for the Citadel: the
Yeah.
interpolation, mediation, and proliferation. And proliferation, um, this third axiom does not describe any actual truth of the lingua arcana, nor does it more broadly describe any facet of the greater binding. Rather, this axiom is pure intellectual technology that serves a political purpose. It's given as magical writ for the expedition of Citadel convenience, and the ramifications of this being made magical law sully every instance of the lingua arcana that it touches. It's a danger to the future of wizardry, and the convenience of its acceptance. It will be a danger even when the convenience of its acceptance have long since passed.
And this was her mom's like letter that had
Yeah.
been written, and it was like the letter to try to like defend herself, right? Or like why?
Yeah, I think it was about like
Like,
she was yeah, it ended with like I'd be happy to like explain more to you guys in person. But so yeah, I thought this was really interesting. So we know that there is like
yeah,
this super fundamental thing that the Citadel is pushing as part of like the
yeah,
lingua
and
arcana.
yeah,
But
and
yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say Brennan said like when you become like a first time wizard or student, like this is like one of the most basic foundational things, right?
Yeah. Yeah, like those three axioms are like the fundamental rules, right? And she's
Brennan, you have
saying,
too much time, brother. Like this is like the detail of like lore. I'm like spinning. Like, okay, hang on. Now, what is it? No, but I already know it's going to be 2 years from now. We're going to be putting up like the explainer vids on
yeah,
TikTok. You
the
know, being
Pepe
like,
Silva.
yeah, you'll be like, hey, so you might have heard like the axiom of interpolation. Well, this is actually from and
Yeah.
if we're going to be all about it, so. But prior to that letter, though, the actual thing that got her expelled, her mother, was accusing one of her professors of treason against magic itself. And Aabria mistakenly later in episode 20 said treason against the Citadel, and Brennan corrected her and said, well, no, it wasn't treason against the Citadel, treason against magic itself.
Mm-hmm.
Which, by the way, is a nice little callback to a scene from Calamity where Brennan had a similar engagement between two NPCs where one, it doesn't matter, but anyway. But so, yeah, so that was kind of the preceding event that you're kind of like, man, what the heck? What happened? And then why did her mother get brought back into the Citadel?
Yeah. Why, I don't know why she would have been brought back, but it seems like this thing is what. Now, I don't know why it was directed at like a singular teacher or like what the relationship there was, but this axiom of proliferation, I think, is what she's calling treason against magic itself. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so what this is apparently,
Oh, yes, that was her like kind of explaining herself, right?
yeah.
So yeah, they are, yeah, right.
And so what this is that what the axiom of proliferation actually is the more times a spell is written down, the weaker it becomes. So like the
Mhm.
more a spell is in people's spell books, the more wizards that know about it, the weaker it is.
Which is such a crazy detail.
Yeah. It feels and I this isn't written in my notes that I'm looking at right now,
Oh,
so I don't know if I made this up.
hang on, hang on. Somehow, a GIF. Sorry, I got made fun of for saying GIF. Just started playing on my computer somewhere. I'm
Hamster
just sitting
dance.
here. Oh, it's sorry. Now it's gone. I don't know where it went.
It's got
I'm sitting here. It
some new
literally just started
virus.
playing on its own. And so if you're, well, you're recording too. So I mean, we'll use yours.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, I started playing, and I was like, "What's happening?
What's
What's
happening?
going on?" It's from Community too. So I was like,
Pop pop.
Dean Pelton, where are you?" So anyway, that was so weird. But I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No,
It
you're
just threw
good.
me.
You're good. I just was gonna say that like, I don't have this written down, so I don't know if I'm making this up, but for some reason I feel like there is something about this axiom of proliferation that's tracking this, right? Like there almost would have to be, because how else? There's some element whether that. Okay, I know I'm losing myself here.
No,
Let
no,
me.
no. I'm with you. Yeah,
All
if
right.
it's well, maybe not like an actual counter, but like a general principle. Like the more it's recorded, written down, whatever, the a general
Oh,
understanding that becomes weaker. Like that. Go
yeah,
ahead.
I remembered my thought process here. So the fact that she's calling it treason means that like it's not the natural way of things, right? It's
Well,
something that
she didn't accuse the principal of treasonous. She accused a professor of treason.
treason, well, I'm just mean against the treason against magic itself.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
inferring that
Okay.
means this
Okay.
axiom of proliferation isn't natural. Like it's not the
Yeah.
normal way of magic.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
presumably the powers that be like added this. So like there might be some sort of actual counter involved when a spell is cast. And I'm tying
Is
this.
that
What?
sorry? Sorry, go ahead.
I'm tying this back to something else we learned
Let him cook.
from Suvi, which was her
Yes,
father's
I'm
notes
with you.
and getting rid of that
The no
useless word, the
clefts.
null cleft.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So like maybe that null cleft serves as like the counter.
Yes.
Like, oh, somebody
Yes.
used that spell and it's being denoted somewhere.
It's like the governor on the car or whatever.
Yeah.
It's something that it's like, yeah, this is how you do it. And then bro, this is like such a mind, just like, but it makes sense though, right? Then again, I don't know if we are Pepe Sylvian, like, it makes sense, right? And people listening are like, what? But yeah, like maybe the Imperium in teaching magic, the null cleft is added as a counter or like as a governor or something. And Suvi's dad, through coincidence, discovered like, why is this on here? It works without it.
Well, he probably figured that out due to being married to Stone, who would have, I'm sure shared these things with him too. So yeah, I mean but like, what is the, and it's probably not fair to call it insidious, but like, what is the purpose of that? If they are weakening spells, the more they're known, like, is it because these most powerful wizards are like hiding and keeping the most powerful spells for themselves, and they're making it so like the masses couldn't ever overthrow them because all they're going to have access to are these weaker spells or something?
Brennan thematically is very like anti I don't know if anti-establishment's the right word. Maybe that
I know
means
what you
something
mean.
else. But like I could totally see something like that. We even have gotten hints of that, of like the archmages being able to use like their own supply or something of like their reservoir.
Yeah.
Which is like, you don't do that for everyone else. So I could definitely see like it being a form of control and power. And but how funny though if this ends up being a thing, because I remember the null cleft episode being like, what a random detail. Like, we are really spinning into like the extra sauce on top. So it's kind of cool how it seems like it's coming back into an actual meaningful detail. So
yeah, so I just wanted to briefly touch on that, but now we can shift back to episode 20. Unless you had anything else from
no, I just love that whole conversation.
19.
Episode 20, I loved the divination wizard Sly.
Yeah, he was great.
Very wizard from I think Bedknobs and Broomsticks or whatever the old cartoon is. That's what I kept visualizing. Just a very cool character. And like, I love how Brennan just like casually delivered some like really heavy story notes or urgency of like, yeah, they're going to kill you. And if Suvi's not there, you're dead. And they're going to try to destroy you. And also kind of painted that meeting in a much more negative light, which I kind of envisioned like, hey, the band's getting together and, Grandmother Wren's dead. Can you come in her place?
Yeah.
We can all meet you. Instead, it was like, we hate you and we're going to kill you. So
yeah, I didn't think it was going to be a like a happy-go-lucky meeting necessarily because of that other meeting with the I can't remember her, but that we privy to in the flashback where she didn't seem like the nicest gal. But I wasn't expecting the thing to be that like, hey, yeah, they're going to vote to like kick you out. You're going to be done.
Which I wonder why.
There was what did they say? It was something about like, let me see if I can find where this was, but there was some like quasi reason given. Basically about like she posed a danger or something. I can't find it.
I think it was like someone was there was going to be like a conversation convincing one another of like the danger.
This isn't really telling, but the sentence I was looking for just says that one of her sisters is going to say in this meeting that the Witch of the World's Heart station threatens the existence of magic in Umora. So that's what Sly said. We don't really know what that means, but that was like the reason that was given. Which I'm not saying these things are connected, but there's been this other kind of ambiguous thing we've been talking about for the whole show about like these things people came to meet with Grandmother Wren about. and being like, are you going to do something about this? Like what, maybe these are all connected. Um, maybe it's because she's the witch of humanity, and what these wizards are doing are threatening magic and the balance with spirits and stuff. So like maybe it's somewhere in that vein. But it's interesting that the argument Sly said that Ame could use to sway them is that like if you destroy my station, there has to be another that's destroyed. And I wonder why
Mm-hmm.
that is.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think there's an even number right now.
Yeah, it's got to be more than that. It can't be like there's got to be 6, and I bring us down,
Yeah. Because we know that's not the
or
case.
whatever.
Because we know that
Yeah,
there used to be like a lot more, Rin told us,
yeah,
and that it's been
yeah,
like whittled down over the years.
yeah. Definitely an epic conversation coming, and also interestingly that Suvi has to be there, and then at some point over the next year, Ursulon has to have a shield, which I just know that Brennan is going to pocket that into some amazing combat situation where Ursulon shields off like a catastrophic blow, and like
Yeah.
we just like very what's his name? Just like that's it right there.
Oh, the Leonardo
Yeah,
DiCaprio
thank
meme.
you. Yeah.
Yeah. That does seem just like a cool DM tool to like reference back to. But I also just think it was Brennan kind of pointing them in the right direction with a really cool in-universe reason too. That's
Mhm.
obviously not that like Ame obviously wasn't going to go by herself, right? Like this is a D&D game, they're a party, they're all going to end up going, but now they have this great reason, especially since Sly said the Citadel is not going to give you permission to go with her.
Right.
But now Suvi like doesn't have to like wrestle with that or figure out, or Aabria
Mhm.
rather. It's like no, but Sly told me if I don't go, she's gonna die.
Mhm.
So I really like that, and you spoke about this already, but I just want to agree that Sly was such a cool character. And Brennan did so many cool, like there were so many poignant and powerful moments with using that foresight, psychic gift that he had. Um, I love that whole scene.
I just love the Ruby conversation.
Yeah, that was such a great moment. Like, oh, I
That
guess you
was
never stole it then, huh?
I know. I was like, I literally was just like, Brennan Lee Mulligan,
Yeah, it was so quick too.
you freaking genius.
And and then another moment that I wrote down just because I liked it so much, which isn't like a clever moment in the same way, but it just like I could really feel like the history of improv and trust between Brennan and Lou. And it was just like when they were kind of having that quick, funny conversation, like talking about his bedside manner. Um, and Sly is like, I'm getting a note on my bedside manner. And Lou just immediately is like, very much so. It was just like, I don't know why about that sequence just really put a smile on my face, but I was like, oh, that's just a nice little moment. It felt so real.
I did.
But yeah. Oh, and the conversation toward the end about importance, that was so like
Mm.
poignant, with Ursulon asking like, why aren't you the most important man here? Well, one, his answer being that like the things I value as catastrophes are not aligned with what the Citadel thinks are problems, but then just like importance isn't dictated by like powerful people, right? It's like Ursulon, you are important, and everyone is important in their own way. I'm butchering what he said, but it was just
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah. It was really good. And definitely like the Fox, just definitely one of my favorite characters.
Yeah,
So
fantastic.
super well done.
I'm interested
Um,
as to what is going on with him though. Like we know why the Citadel doesn't treat him as important, but clearly he's very powerful. And if we take him at his word, which he proved that he knew some things like about Ame and stuff, but like he's therefore I believe his other catastrophes he's preventing are real. Like this is like the most important man
all right.
in the
All
Citadel,
right. Let's just clip this and just level with me for a second. I'm gonna throw something out there.
Okay.
Okay. Wheels are spinning. Okay. There comes a time in D&D where you meet an NPC where you're like, this is like probably the most powerful NPC to work towards the party's advantage.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, how do you balance this out? And effectively, the party has met this NPC who's on their side, who is a true friend, who knows the freaking future. I think how cool it would be if Brennan writes this character to essentially help them and prevent catastrophes, even if it leads to his own demise down the
Mm,
road, which also is a really great, I don't say DM tool, but like there being like an expiration on certain resources and things just so like they can't be used endlessly. Or otherwise, you have to sometimes have to like always explain why.
yeah.
But I guess it could also be like the Doctor Strange thing of like, if I tell you, it won't happen. I mean, you could do that too. But I'm just very excited to see like what Brennan does with this character, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, he also, you know, their paths crossed with this Ame thing because that apparently is a very potentially calamitous thing if like the Witch of the World's Heart were to be taken out. But it could be that like he's going to be too busy dealing with preventing other things than to like meddle in this
Mm-hmm.
level 2 now, I guess, party's
Mm-hmm.
affairs. Cuz so I did like the way that he just teleported out at the end cuz it's like he's got other places to be, other things to do.
Right.
But it would be cool. I mean, not I don't want him to die, but it would be like interesting if like you were saying there was some like sacrifice play that he ultimately had to make to one kind of remove that piece off of the board. But two, he's also really old, I think, right? Not that that necessarily
Uh,
means much for a wizard, but there's some line that I remember Suvi saying about the Office of
mm-hmm.
Preemptive Catastrophic Deviation or whatever, where like that's like where old wizards go to die, which kind of speaks to how like no one else in the Citadel thinks it's important. But so that just made me think he was like on the older side, and
Well, this is a pretty powerful magic. I mean, surely the archmages are able to utilize it too, or
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It made it seem like like maybe it's just a field of study, right? And he's like the expert in that. Because he talked about like
yeah.
honing his magic over the years or whatever. I did think it was funny that the reason he bought that place was because he foresaw the kebab place opening up.
Yeah.
I also, this
Uh,
is random, but the music during that section was very like hitting a certain like nostalgic note for
yes,
me.
me
Very
too.
video game
Yes.
like
I don't know
esque.
what it was, but I
Yeah.
noticed it too. Yeah.
um, so shout out Taylor Moore. He
Yeah.
always is doing a fantastic job. But yeah, Sly easily one of favorite NPCs of the whole campaign so far. Um,
Um, moving on from there, when they go to Haverwort, um, I just loved Brennan's kind of like blue collar esque
yeah,
illustration and like just offsetting Suvi's privilege, as you called it, with like the real circumstances of Hannah and her dad. And
hmm
like, hey, we're going to go get some dinner. You want to come? And like, yeah. And then realizing like their workload has doubled and yet the time to delivery is the same. And it was just kind of sobering.
yeah. I really liked that dynamic, and you know, all the way to like the little detail that could easily have just not been included, but it's like you know, Brennan being really great at what he does with the conversation in the native language where Hana like doesn't want to give them the shield, you know, because and I don't know this, but my interpretation of that scene was like Suvi has everything, and now she's just gonna waltz in here, and we're gonna give her something else just for free because she asked, you know. So like that to me, that's why she was like didn't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and plus, I mean, not only the like socio-political dynamic between them, but there's the whole accident thing, which I'm sure gives her all the other more reasons to like not love Suvi, you know, which maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but I seem to remember like they were kids and they were playing near that pool of magic or whatever, and she jumped in or something happened and
Suvi like, pushed her in, I
Suvi
think.
pushed her in. I forgot about that part.
Yeah.
Yeah, so no wonder, right? Like, so just feels like Suvi has always been kind of oblivious of
Yeah.
these dynamics, but as we saw in this episode, finally kind of picked up on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just yeah, great kind of character world building happening in that scene.
And you know, the war machine continues to ramp up. Like
Yeah,
I'm just kind of wondering what are we heading to? Like, are we heading to like a full scale war, like combat? I mean, it's
yeah,
very interesting because 2 episodes ago we had the level 9 fireball to
right,
Marie who were
right,
getting shipped out too.
right.
Like, this is a catastrophic It's not a skirmish we're talking about.
Yeah, and presumably the Fort Kieran thing has been dealt with, according to
Mm,
Sly. But that was obviously maybe like kind of the first domino. Maybe not the first, but one of the first dominoes leading to something bigger. And then the ships all arriving at the end, being like the most Suvi had ever seen. Like, is
yeah.
the implication was your implication those are returning from Fort Kieran and that big of a force was sent there? Or they're the forces are being called back to base to like get like everyone come back. We're about to have to go do some stuff.
I feel like it would have to be the latter, right? Because I mean, she's seen soldiers come back from combat. It's how her story
Yeah.
opened up.
Yeah. And it wouldn't seem,
So
I mean, we don't really know anything about Fort Kirian, but the fact that it's already okay makes it seem like it
yeah,
wouldn't have been
right,
that much bigger of a deal that Suvi would take note of the
right,
size of this fleet coming in.
right.
But yeah, I'm interested to see where that's going. There is I don't want to move us away from this specific point if you had more, but there is something else I wanted to jump back to a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
And it was Ursulan's sister thing.
Hmm.
Just to kind of build out this timeline a little bit. So we know that Ursulan leaves the spirit realm, comes to the prime material plane, meets Sir Curran, and that was, I think, like 300 ish years ago from present day with
Right,
Suvi and everybody.
right.
He goes back through to the spirit realm, tells his dad about the pauldron. He's like, you got to go deal with
Bury
that.
it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna bury it. Yeah.
Instead, Ursulan, like is in like a playful kind of fight with his siblings, I think, or something, and runs back into the real world, his sister chasing him.
Right.
So we know Ursulan to come back through, and it's 300 years in the future, and he meets young Ame and young Suvi. So presumably his sister comes through, and she's way in the past compared to that. Now
Yeah. Different time.
we don't know when, but it's at the very least 50 or 60 years earlier. Because she then spends 50 plus years as a fake wizard in the Citadel. So, I mean, I would stand to reason that there's probably a chunk of time before that began. Like she didn't just enter the real world day one and go do that, right? So probably 60, 70, if not more years earlier than when Ursulan arrived. So she fakes being a wizard for 50 years, then gets caught, put in the gallery, and was released from the gallery 22 years prior to today. So we don't know that 50 years where she was a wizard. I'm assuming that doesn't include her imprisonment time.
I agree.
So we don't
Yeah.
even like she could have been imprisoned for 100 years, for all we know. Um, there's just no. I guess we know that it was at least. No, I guess we don't know.
Well, I took it. Well, I guess I took the wizard time to like it ended with her being imprisoned. Is kind of how I saw it.
Okay, so meaning like she was a wizard for 30 years, got
Yeah.
caught, and then was imprisoned for 20
Yeah.
ish. Okay,
Yeah.
so
But the 50 number's also in my head, so it
right.
could be the other one too.
Yeah, I guess we didn't get like explicit confirmation. But so anyway, she's at least been in the human world for probably 60 to 70 years. But it could be way longer than that,
Hmm.
potentially. So it seems like she chased her brother over here, and then I would imagine, having no idea about the time dilation originally, was looking for Ursulon for a very long time.
Hmm.
And then potentially at some point figured out what happened, and then tried to learn more about magic, would be my assumption, to like try to either get
Or
herself back or help Ursulon or
maybe she knew Ursulon would one day be at the Citadel, and she was literally just waiting till he would arrive.
true.
Like how does every story like that go? It's like you go to the place you know someone will eventually be.
True.
So maybe somehow through divination she knew Ursulon would one day be at the Citadel, and she was like, "I'm just gonna chill here for a while."
Yeah. This seems like to find Ursulon was like the main goal, I would imagine. And
Hmm.
then gets found out, gets imprisoned, meets Soft,
Hmm.
gets out. So where is she now? It's an
Hmm.
interesting question. But yeah, I just wanted to make sure for my own sake and also for anybody else out there, kind of just build that timeline a little bit. Um, Very interesting though to think of, that because I didn't even consider his sister was here at all, which I don't know if we knew that. I don't think we did, because I don't think we could have known.
Right. Right.
But yeah, I'm just curious where she's at, what she's up to. Is it going to be a good relationship at this point? You know, she's spent potentially 100+ years
Mm-hmm.
trapped over here. Maybe not trapped, but presumably trapped in the same way that Ursulon is, but maybe not. She didn't get like bathed and stuff like he did necessarily. But I would also imagine she wouldn't have spent 50 years at the Citadel if she could have just gone home.
Right.
So
Right.
maybe she's not Ursulon's biggest fan anymore, you know?
Maybe she's the BEG.
Maybe, you know? It's, honestly, gets imprisoned for we don't know how long, probably is not a fan of the Citadel, right?
Probably,
so
yeah.
so it might be an interesting kind of dynamic when this meeting happens and you know Suvi's still there.
Yeah.
But I guess if Soft did help her and she knows that's his daughter, maybe that wouldn't be as abrasive a
Is the next episode tomorrow? Or is it still a week out?
No, it's tomorrow.
Oh, okay, cool. Nice.
Which I think
procrastinating paid off. I got to listen to 3 episodes in 1 week.
pop.
Excuse me.
But yeah, I think for the most part that's what I wanted to talk about.
Yeah. Well, it's only getting better and better. I'm very curious how many episodes we have left to the end of this arc.
Feels like a bit, right? Because we just started, I think, right?
Yeah. Well, I know they had filmed through, I think 25 was the number given like a few months ago. But it's good and it's very palatable too. You know,
I think it was in the Arc 1 wrap up, but I might be wrong. It's not important. But I remember them saying like they were about to start Arc 3, and that was before Arc 2 had aired for us. So they had already finished this entire arc before we heard the first episode of it.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
But I mean, the arc could be 5 episodes long for all we know. You know, I doubt it is, but
yeah,
they definitely got a ways ahead on it. And I wonder if that's partially due to apparently Brennan just had a baby. He and his wife, I think.
I thought they went on their honeymoon.
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Somebody mentioned that in the Discord.
He may have. Maybe it's both. I don't know. I thought I read that he was on his honeymoon though.
Could be. I don't know.
But they're both big life details.
Yeah.
One is much more tiring than the other. But
true.
Okay. Well, let us know what you guys thought of this episode and any thoughts and theories you have. And if you have a friend who isn't watching Worlds Beyond, but they love D&D, I would definitely encourage you to let them know about it. And again, jump in our Discord because we love talking about it and discussing it. So we'll have that link in the episode description.
Yeah. And if you're a Critical Role fan, C3 back this Thursday. Our live stream on Friday at 1 p.m. Central Time, and Sunday Fun Day watch parties. All things to be on the lookout for. That's all I got, though.
See ya.
Bye, y'all.